The Cheyenne Nation, self-identified as the Tsé-tsêhéstâhese, meaning like-hearted people, represents one of the most structurally sophisticated and historically pivotal indigenous polities of the North American Great Plains. Originating as an Algonquian-speaking, semi-sedentary agricultural society in the woodland-prairie transition zones, the Cheyenne underwent a profound socio-ecological transformation during the 17th and 18th centuries. Upon acquiring the horse and mastering nomadic equestrian bison hunting, the Tsé-tsêhéstâhese established a complex dual system of government, a rich ceremonial structure rooted in sacred prophetic covenants, and a formidable military apparatus that reshaped the geopolitical landscape of the central and northern plains. The modern Cheyenne nation emerged through the gradual political and cultural unification of three distinct, linguistically related Algonquian groups: the Hevix-Nipahis, the Sutayo, Sotayo-o, and the Masakota. Through intermarriage, shared defensive interests, and common ceremonial alignments, these independent groups coalesced into the Tsé-tsêhéstâhese. Following this amalgamation, the tribe organized itself into 10 foundational bands, which provided the primary social and spatial structure for seasonal movements, communal bison hunts, and tribal assemblies. The term Cheyenne itself does not derive from the tribe's native language. Etymological analysis indicates that the name was assigned by neighboring Dakota and Lakota groups, or alternatively misconstrued by early European traders from the French word chien, dog, owing to the prominent stature of the Cheyenne Dog Warrior Society. The 10 traditional bands functioned as autonomous socio-economic units during the winter months, sheltering separately in protected river valleys where game and winter forage were accessible. During the summer, when wild chokecherries ripened and bison herds aggregated into massive concentrations, the 10 bands converged into a unified circle camp to conduct sacred ceremonies and hold legislative meetings. Traditional Cheyenne governance operated through a balanced bicameral framework comprising the Council of 44, Chief Society, and 6 to 7 distinct military societies, warrior societies. This system separated civil legislative authority from executive enforcement and military operations, preventing autocratic rule while maintaining internal social cohesion. The Council of 44 served as the supreme governing body responsible for tribal policy, international diplomacy, treaty negotiations, interband dispute resolution, and the preservation of customary law. The council consisted of 4 chiefs chosen from each of the 10 traditional bands, alongside 4 principal statesmen known as Old Man Chiefs, who had served previous terms with exceptional wisdom and moral integrity. Selection to the council was not governed by democratic popular vote or hereditary inheritance. Instead, active council members named their own successors every 4 years during the annual Summer Council Assembly, appointing leaders to 10-year terms. Nominees were typically seasoned warriors who possessed moral authority, even temperaments, generous dispositions, and demonstrated diplomatic skill. Upon accepting a position on the Council of 44, a chief was legally required to resign his membership in any military society, symbolically severing ties with partisan warrior factions to dedicate himself entirely to peacemaking and internal harmony. At the head of the council stood the Sweet Medicine Chief, who served as both spiritual figurehead and chief magistrate. The Sweet Medicine Chief maintained the chief's medicine, a sacred bundle composed of ceremonial grass that embodied the tribal legal code and moral behavioral standards established by the founding prophet, Sweet Medicine. While the Council of 44 held parliamentary and civil authority, executive enforcement and tactical defense fell to the military societies. These groups included the Elkhorn Scrapers, the Shield Boys, the Bowstring Men, the Contrary Warriors, and the Dog Soldiers, Hotamateneo-o. The Council of 44 periodically selected one military society to serve as the active tribal police force. The chosen society was tasked with enforcing council decrees, maintaining order during major relocations, disciplining individuals who compromised communal safety, and overseeing the strict rules governing communal bison hunts to prevent premature scaring of the herds. Cheyenne theology presents a deeply ordered universe governed by Hamawihio, the supreme creator god, who imparted knowledge of hunting, agriculture, fire utilization, and moral law. The physical and spiritual worlds were linked through prayers directed to the 4 cardinal directions, with the West designated as the paramount spiritual vector, as it was understood to be the origin of life-giving rain, thunder, and cosmological storms. The foundation of Cheyenne legal, political, and spiritual life rests upon the revelations received by the prophet Sweet Medicine at the sacred mountain of Bear Butte, Nohavosa, in the Black Hills. Sweet Medicine returned to the people with the fundamental institution of the Council of 44 and the premier sacred covenant of the tribe, the 4 sacred arrows known as mahuts. Mahuts represents the collective soul and physical survival of the Cheyenne Nation. The arrows required periodic purification through the sacred arrow renewal ceremony, a multi-day ritual enacted when a murder occurred within the tribe or when a pledger sought spiritual blessing for the nation. A second major prophet, Erect Horns, introduced the second central covenant to the Sutai band prior to their integration into the broader Cheyenne Nation. Erect Horns brought forth the sacred buffalo hat, Isiwan, crafted from the scalp and horns of a female bison cow. Isiwan symbolized female fertility, spiritual protection, and the intrinsic bond between the Cheyenne people and the bison herds. The keepers of mahuts and Isiwan held sacred positions within tribal society. Candidates were vetted strictly for moral integrity, humility, and emotional stability, with customary law stipulating that keepers must be honest and resistant to anger. Custodians could be impeached by tribal consensus if they neglected their ceremonial duties or displayed moral failings. During the mid-19th century, a significant structural shift occurred within Cheyenne society. The transformation of the Dog Warrior Society, Hotametaneo, from a standard military society into an autonomous political band. This evolution altered traditional governance structures and created a powerful faction of military resistance against American westward expansion. The transformation began between 1837 and 1840 following an internal tragedy. Porcupine Bear, a prominent dog soldier chief, intervened in an alcohol-fueled fight between his cousins, Little Creek and Around, resulting in accidental injury to Little Creek. Under Cheyenne legal codes, shedding the blood of a tribal member led to immediate banishment. Porcupine Bear and his immediate martial followers were exiled, forcing them to establish a separate camp independent of the main tribal circle. The status of the exiles shifted dramatically following the cholera pandemic of 1849, which killed nearly half of the Southern Cheyenne population. The surviving remnants of the devastated Massacota band formally merged with Porcupine Bear's exiles. This merger transformed the Dog Soldiers into a distinct third major division of the Cheyenne people, positioning them geographically between the Northern Cheyenne, who ranged north of the Platte River, and the Southern Cheyenne, who occupied regions along the Arkansas River. The Dog Soldier Band introduced structural changes to Cheyenne kinship and residential customs. Traditionally, Cheyenne society followed matrilocal residence patterns, where a newly married husband moved to the camp of his bride's family. The Dog Soldiers reversed this custom, requiring all incoming wives to move directly to the Dog Soldier encampment. This patrilocal concentration consolidated martial power and fostered intense internal solidarity. Geographically, the Dog Soldiers controlled the headwaters of the Republican and Smoky Hill rivers across northern Kansas, southern Nebraska, and northeastern Colorado. They formed close military and familial alliances with the Brule and Oglala Lakota, resulting in frequent intermarriage. The prominent Dog Soldier leader Tall Bull was himself of mixed Cheyenne Lakota parentage. Tactically, the Dog Soldiers developed a combat doctrine built around absolute territorial defense. Elite warriors wore long leather sashes, dog ropes, passed over the shoulder. In battle, a warrior would anchor himself to the ground by driving a wooden picket pin or a sacred arrow through the end of the sash into the earth, signaling that he would not retreat unless explicitly unpinned by a fellow society brother. As Euro-American emigration expanded along the Smoky Hill Trail, a deep political divide emerged between the Council of 44 peace chiefs, such as Black Kettle, and the militant Dog Soldiers. The Dog Soldiers consistently refused to sign treaties, including the Treaty of Fort Wise, that surrendered traditional hunting grounds or restricted the nation to reservations south of the Arkansas River. Led by war leaders like Tall Bull and supported by renowned strategists like Roman Nose, who launched major strikes including the attack on Fort Wallace in 1867, the Dog Soldiers executed an aggressive campaign against military infrastructure and encroaching settlements. This resistance continued until July 11, 1869, when Major Eugene Asa Carr's U.S. 5th Cavalry, guided by Pawnee Scouts, launched a surprise attack on Tall Bull's camp at the Battle of Summit Springs in Colorado Territory. Tall Bull and over 50 dog soldiers were killed, breaking the band's capability as an independent military unit and forcing the surviving members into smaller, secretive societies. Throughout the mid to late 19th century, the Cheyenne were central participants in major engagements fought against the United States Army across the central and northern plains. At the Battle of the Little Bighorn, June 25th to 26, 1876, the Cheyenne camp was positioned at the northern end of the massive encampment along the west bank of the Little Bighorn River, directly opposite Medicine Tail Coulee. Demonstrating the enduring centrality of their spiritual covenants, the Cheyenne placed the ceremonial lodge housing the sacred buffalo hat, Isiwun, at the exact center of their circular camp, which opened to the east in accordance with traditional cosmology. Cheyenne warriors were instrumental in repelling Major Marcus Reno's initial assault and encircling Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer's 5 companies. Prominent Cheyenne combatants included Two Moons, Lame White Man, Brave Wolf, Wooden Leg, Yellow Nose, Bobtail Horse, and Roan Bear. Notably, Calf Trail Woman, a female warrior who fought alongside her husband Black Coyote, participated actively in combat, continuing a legacy of valor established when she saved her brother's life at the Battle of the Rosebud. 7 Cheyenne warriors died in the defense at Little Bighorn: Whirlwind, age 16, Crooked Nose, age 16, Limber Bones, age 20, Black Bear, age 20, Cut Belly, approx. Age 30, Noisy Walking, age 18, and Chief Lame White Man, age 38. Following the defeat of the Plains tribes in late 1876, over 1,000 Northern Cheyenne were forcibly rounded up and marched south to the Darlington Agency in Indian Territory, modern-day Oklahoma, to be consolidated with the Southern Cheyenne. The hot climate, widespread malaria, and inadequate food rations produced a devastating mortality rate among the Northern Cheyenne. In September 1878, 2 principal leaders, Morning Star, also known as Dull Knife, and Little Wolf, the Sweet Medicine Chief, refused to remain in Oklahoma. Leading a group of roughly 300 men, women, and children, they broke away and began a 1,500-mile fight across Oklahoma, Kansas, Nebraska, and Dakota territories back to their northern homelands. The extraordinary determination of the Northern Exodus forced a complete shift in federal policy. In 1884, the United States Executive Branch formally established the Tongue River Indian Reservation, now the Northern Cheyenne Indian Reservation, in southeastern Montana, granting the Northern Cheyenne permanent legal title to their ancestral Northern Territory. To evaluate Cheyenne governance, spatial territoriality, and resistance within a broader regional context, it is instructive to compare their history alongside another dominant equestrian confederacy of the Northwestern Plains, the Tsé-tsêhéstâhese Blackfoot Confederacy. The Blackfoot Confederacy comprises 4 distinct nations sharing a common Algonquian language: Siksika-Powassan, the Siksika Blackfoot proper, the Kainai Blood, the Apatosipikani Northern Pagan, and the Amska-Apipikani Southern Pagan/Montana Blackfeet. The ancestral territory of the Siksika-Tsitapi, Kitawasanoon, spanned a vast area from the North Saskatchewan River in Alberta south to the Yellowstone River in Montana. Like the Cheyenne, the Siksika-Tsitapi transitioned from pedestrian hunters using dogs to an equestrian bison hunting power that maintained strategic control over the shortgrass prairies. Today, the Cheyenne Nation remains politically vibrant and culturally active across 2 federally recognized sovereign jurisdictions: the Northern Cheyenne tribes centered at Lame Deer, Montana, and the Cheyenne and Arapaho tribes headquartered in Concho, Oklahoma. The Council of 44 continues to exist as a vital legislative and ceremonial body, operating alongside contemporary elected business councils. Furthermore, military societies, most notably the Dog Soldiers, Hotametaneo, have experienced a significant cultural revival. No longer acting as insurgent fighters, modern dog soldiers serve as ceremonial marshals, cultural keepers, and guardians of tribal lands.